As an American who's been living in Italy for the past 5 years, here are 5 American things that I don't miss. And these are in no particular order. Number one is everything is so extra. There's just extra large everything. You have the super big gulp, which was the classic in my generation, 64 ounces of your favorite soda. I've seen people drink 64 ounces of coffee, carrying around gallons of water with them because they're so afraid of being dehydrated. It's just ingrained in us that more is better, bigger is better. Our restaurants are notorious for having huge portion sizes, free refills. There's this idea that we need to have an excess of something to feel satisfied, to feel like we got our money's worth. Espresso may seem like an extra small serving of coffee, but the flavor is strong and it doesn't really need to be diluted with a bunch of extra milk and sugar. So I've come to enjoy the full flavor of espresso, but it took a while to get away from the American mindset that bigger is always better. And this starts at a very young age. We are taught that a good Christmas is when you have piles and piles of presents because that's what's shown to us when we watch movies and TV and advertisements. All the Christmas movies would have the giant Christmas tree and a huge pile of presents. Think about Thanksgiving. Not only is it a big meal, which of course a lot of holidays are focused on eating and big meals, but the big meal in Thanksgiving is just like a giant oversized, almost comically large piece of meat, an entire animal just on the table. If you don't have a big turkey, then you're missing out. And I think that's what it is. It's not that everything is available that's extra. For most people, all of that is just almost like a slap in the face because the focus is if you have more, then you are more loved, then you are worth more. You don't realize it until you leave the US for a while, how absurdly over the top extra everything is. Sometimes that can be a little fun, but we are led to believe that that's what is most valuable, is the biggest, the best. And I don't miss that at all, that culture of more is better, because it's not always. In a way, I think that's part of the like American trap. The more you have, the bigger your house, the bigger your car, the more money you have to spend on a regular basis. And the harder it is to keep up and to maintain those things, which leads me to number two of things that I don't miss. Driving a car. I made a video a while back about things that I miss most about the US, and one of those was convenient. And yes, having a car makes things really convenient. And that's because most of the US is built around the assumption that every single person is going to have a car. Cities are not really designed for people, they're designed for cars. I lived in LA, which is one of the largest metropolitan areas in the US. It was totally normal to be driving 2-3 hours a day. There's something very freeing about not having to have that burden of maintaining a car. And the cost of having a car and maintaining a car makes it so that it's not convenient for everyone. It's not even possible for everyone, so that the people who don't have cars have to spend way more time, and it's way more inconvenient for anyone to do anything if you don't have a car. And I'm not saying Italian transportation is perfect and that every city is completely accessible without a car, but I chose a city and I had a number of options of cities to choose from that I could live in and walk to get most places. Yes, sometimes when it's raining out or really cold or even really hot, I do miss being able to just like run to the car and have perfect climate control and just get to my destination really quickly without having to look at train or bus schedules or anything like that. But the pros definitely outweigh the cons. I don't miss the expense of a car, not only car payments, but car insurance. And then if anything happens to the car, you have to pay for the repairs, for rental cars. Even though when I moved to my new apartment in Turin, I'm no longer in the city center, I can still get around very easily. And I can still get to the center within like 15 or 20 minutes without having a car. So I can take a bus, I can take the metro, I can ride a bike if I had one. I don't miss having a car, driving a car, being in traffic, or just feeling like you're trapped somewhere if your car breaks down. And the third thing that I don't miss is hustle culture. And this started long before most people had to have two jobs just to survive. because I'm definitely one of those people. I started noticing this in college when people would have conversations and it was like a competition for who is the most busy. People wear it like a badge of honor, like, oh, well, I work 12 hours a day, I work 16 hours a day, I started a company and I never left the building. And it's seen something that we should aspire to, something that we should strive for, because working hard, the most valuable thing. Again, the culture of excess, like nothing is big enough, nothing is good enough, you can't work hard enough. And I feel like it's just gotten even worse over time. It's like our whole society is designed around producing good workers, and we're not supposed to question it. We're just supposed to keep working harder. And if anything goes wrong in our lives, we just didn't work hard enough. Our whole political system is designed around that. It's designed to demonize people who don't work. And if you don't work, you're not valuable to society. You shouldn't exist. That's not just me thinking that. I've heard politicians say recently in their speeches and with their policies that if you don't work and you can't work, then you don't deserve health care. You don't, basically, you don't deserve to live if you can't work. And that is just unheard of in most other countries in the world. And the worst thing is that people who've lived in the US their whole lives don't even know any different. So they don't even realize how absurd that is until they actually spend a lot of time outside the US. And unfortunately, most people don't get a chance because they're too busy working 2 or 3, 4 jobs to survive. I don't think that's a coincidence. Just as it's not a coincidence that I chose a place to live that is completely opposite culture wise. This is one of the many parks in Turin. You wouldn't believe it, but we're right in the middle of the city, and there's people here at all hours. It's very clean, it's very well maintained. This is just the norm in most cities in Italy and in other countries in Europe. They really value their public spaces. They don't really commercialize them as much. There's a few bars and restaurants in the park itself, but it's not meant to make money. It's just here for the people. You can come have a picnic here if you want. You can bring a bottle of wine. Living in a place like this just shows you that life isn't all about work. There's plenty of free things to do in the city. There's plenty of places to hang out. And it's not that people don't work here or don't like to work. People work very hard. It's just that your job doesn't have to be your whole identity, and you don't get shamed for taking time off or needing a break or getting sick like you do in the US, and you're not living under the constant fear of losing everything. Which leads me to my next point. And the fourth American thing that I don't miss is, big shocker, it's the healthcare system. I don't need to get into this so much for most of my audience because you are from the US. Just to give context, as many jobs as I had over the years, I never got the privilege of having healthcare through my job. When I graduated from college, I had to decide what kind of plan to be on, because back then you couldn't stay under your parents' insurance until you were 25. You could be rejected from healthcare for having a pre-existing condition or the potential for a pre-existing condition. I had friends who couldn't get any coverage at all because they smoked. And so one day they could have to get covered for smoking related illnesses. So even though they were perfectly healthy, they could not get insurance. Younger generations don't remember that time. And that was before the Affordable Care Act. I was paying for my own health care for most of my adult life, and it goes up every single year. So I was in my early 40s when I left the country, and I was paying $320 a month just for my base, what was it called, the just to be insured. And then of course there's the deductible and the co-payments and all of that. I personally went through a lot of issues with healthcare because I was sick for a lot of my 20s and 30s, and I had an undiagnosed chronic illness. And part of the reason it was undiagnosed for so long and misdiagnosed was because I avoided going to the doctor unless I was really, really sick. One of the worst parts of American healthcare is that you have no idea how much you will have to pay every time you go. It's going to be some unknown cost because they can't tell you what it is, and your insurance just bills you later. It could be $5, it could be $500, and you don't know. And so you have to decide right then, do I want this procedure? Do I need it? The doctor says I need it, so I should do it. And then you worry about it later. It was just a constant stress on my head. And I don't think any healthcare system is perfect, but it doesn't take much to improve on what we have in the US, which I think it causes more stress and anxiety and illness than it resolves. Every day, I'm happy and grateful that I live in a country that has a public healthcare system. It's not completely free, but it is way more affordable than what the US has. And that's one of the things that I will never ever miss. And I hope that the US resolves that problem. It's one of the reasons I can't ever move back. And the last thing that I don't miss about the US is living in constant fear of the threat of random violence, specifically gun violence. Accidents happen, tragedies happen, violence happens all over the world, but not in the same way as it does in the US, not in the way that really traumatizes almost everyone from a very young age. And I think along with that fear, which I never really connected before, not just the fear of random violence, but the fear that the violence will come from the people who are supposed to protect you. I never knew that I was traumatized and had like a deep seated fear of police until I left the US. I would encounter police in just in everyday life. Every time I walked by them, I would tense up, and I just had this fear because there's so many guns in the US. Police are trained to think that everyone is a threat and that anyone they encounter might have a weapon and might want to hurt them. And so they react like that. And that's how regular traffic stops turn violent on their part, and that's how they will break into someone's house and get the wrong house, and someone accidentally gets killed. I've personally had encounters with the police as a non-criminal, and I've definitely feared for my life in encounters that should not have escalated like that. I don't know, I can't speak for every country, but here people don't have a the same fear for police. They don't have the same like worship of police. People don't really think one way or the other. If anything, they really don't like them. I'm sure there's corruption in the police force here. I'm sure there's a lot of bad things that happen when people encounter police, but I personally have not felt that and I've not witnessed it. It's just not as prevalent as it is in the US. I don't feel threatened by being in crowds, shopping in stores, and doing regular life things, taking the metro. I just don't feel that same sense of fear for my safety physically, not to mention the sense of fear that I talked about earlier with medical debt and those kind of things. People ask me a lot why I moved to Italy, but also why I left the US. I don't really know how to answer because it's not necessarily for pleasant reasons. Although I do love Italy, I can't imagine living anywhere else right now. I'll talk in another video about specifically why I left, when I left. That's a whole other story for another time. But I think it's important to have perspective of your home country from a distance. Really, when you spend time somewhere, you realize things that you appreciate more about your home country, as well as things that you really are glad that you left behind. And I did make a video on things that I miss about the US, of course, if you'd like to check that out. This one is, I think, more of a reminder to me of a lot of the reasons that I don't miss the US are pretty much parallel with the reasons that I left in the first place. It's hard to really keep it light all the time and focus on the positives, which I like to do, and the good sides of moving countries. But I also want to be realistic and show more of the real sides of being an immigrant, as well as a lot of the things that are really challenging and that make you feel really isolated and alone at times. I'm hoping to connect with other people with similar experiences. If you have also moved countries before or you're thinking about it, comment below and tell me some of the things that you really miss or don't miss about your home country. I hope you'll join me again for the next video. And remember, you only get one life, so start living it.